Welcome to Actual Scale Modelling. This is part 3 of the Revell USS United States, scale 1 to 96. In part 2 I painted the lower decks and made a start on the cannon. In this part I'll be carrying on with the cannons and hopefully getting onto the upper decks. So let's get into the build. So I've moved the camera a little bit closer for this. I'm setting up the pulley system for the gun port covers, so I'm just tying a knot in the end of the cotton here, and then once that's tied, you may have to double knot depending on how big your hole is. And then I use the little tool to grab the thread through, so I'm just placing that in, pushing in the thread and pulling it through. That's the easiest way to thread a small hole. You can get these in any sewing kit. So once that's on, I just pull it to the hole, and then a little dot of cement just to stiffen up the knot so it can't compress and come down. And next is to attach it. So I'm using the same threading tool here, going through the already drilled out holes, which are pre-drilled for you. You don't have to drill them yourself. And I just push that through. Can be a little bit tricky because the space issue, but just persevere with it and it'll be okay. So once that's through, I then take the cover with the thread, push it in, and then pull up the tool, and then that's into the hole. And then all you have to do is cement the contact area and pull it taut and attach the cover of the cotton pot, just like that. And that's all there is to that little bit. A little bit more intricate than a lot of these builds, but that's how I did it. Then it's moving on to the cannons and cradle, so it's just a dot cement on the cradle before you put the barrel in. Make sure you know what angle you're putting these barrels in before you cement them in place. So just dry fit to know which angle you're putting them in. Basically, you don't want them pointing downwards, you want them slightly raised. And while they're drying, I'm just tidying up these pieces of thread. So I'm just pulling them taut using my tweezers and snipping them off. To begin prep work for attaching the cannons now, I'm taking these little cleats, because how small they are, and I'm pushing through the threader again. Now on each side there's 16 of these to do, or 17, can't quite remember. The best way I found to doing this is thread them before you put them on your model. It's easier this way because you have a lot more room, and you just work along the line as you go along. So I'm just pushing it through and then pull the thread through, and then that's one attached, and I do that for them all. So once that's all done, just tie a knot in one end so they don't fall off, and then a little bit of glue on that so that the knot doesn't come undone. This doesn't stick the glue, the rope, it just stiffens it. So as you can see, I've already attached some, so I thought I would do a few before I started filming. So now that they're attached, I move on to the next one. So I draw the cleat down and apply a little glue to the recess point, which you mark with this black arrow, and they run down both sides of the shape. Once that's on, just pull the rope or thread a little bit taut so it's coming through the plate there, and then it's moving on to the next cannon. Now you'll have to wait until most things are dry before you go into each one, so this takes a long time to do. Once your cannons are in position, use a little bit of cement on the end of the runs of the cannon, and then take your cord and just lay it over the top of the cannon, and then add a little bit more cement if you wish, and that brings you back to the starting point. I am bringing down the cleat to go into the recess point. as I said, this takes quite a while to do. Um, the the beauty about doing it this way, though, is one, you won't run out a thread or cotton rope or whatever you want to call it, because it's on your reel, so you can just cut it at the end when you finish the process. The downside is the drying time, because as I said, you have to wait until these little cleats are dry before you move on to the next part. Now you can use a little bit of super glue if you wish, but bear in mind that won't be a permanent bond, but it may allow you just to move on with the process a little bit quicker. Then you can add a little bit of cement to reinforce that bond, and it should last. But play about with that technique, because it's not a cert. I would advise, to be on the safe side, just do it the normal way. Use cement, let it dry, then carry on to the next one. Moving on to the upper decks, and the areas here I'm painting in Revell Aquacolor 382 Wood Brown. These are the access pots and grates and things, so the furniture we're just getting painted around it first. These parts here are spare beams and so forth. So the base colour is 88 Ochre Brown, and then I'm going over with life colour LPW18 Wood Deck Darkener. These sit on the lower part of the deck. I'm not really sure whether you need to put them in or not, but I did. So onto the main deck, and it's 88 Ochre Brown, just like the lower deck, so putting that in as my base colour. So now I'm placing in the spare masts and beams, and these go in between the 4 little cleats that I put in on the previous video. I would say it's up to you how many you put in, and they're different lengths, so you can put them in any various pattern. And moving on to the guard rope that goes around them. These fit into the little cleats, so I'm using my threader here just to go through them and pulling the rope through. And once it's through, I'll just put a little dab of super glue in the end to close it off. Back to the main deck, and I'm using life colours LPW19 Wood Deck Shadow, like I did on the lower decks. This is to give it the wood effect. But as you can see here, the drastic change in tone once this pigment's been added. So that's this stage where you start placing in the first rat lines. On this part there's 6 in total to put in, and you put them through the little hole inside of the hull, not the end of your thread, and pull it through like that. The knots are covered up with the upper deck, so it's essential you do this now. Also the same with the anchor rope as well. This is a dedicated really thick rope that comes with the kit. I found it a bit tricky, even with my threader, to get to pull through. It's just the nature of the thickness of the rope. It's also good to know as well, this particular piece of rope gets looped through. It doesn't come in 2 halves, so you'll have to do this a couple of times to pull it through. But if you need to trim it, it's okay. As you can see there, there's plenty of length in it for the anchor. Making up one of the main capstans here, and it's just a couple of parts put together. I decided to do it on a sprue, just makes it easier, so a lot of things are not pinging about. So there's 3 parts to make up before it can be placed in, and once it was made up I used Mr. Hobby H37 Wood Brown for the colour, and then I moved on to Revell Aquacolor 93 Copper for the stud work around the capsule. It's time to fit the main deck now. I just thought it comes in actually 3 parts, which is problematic. You might think it's easier, but it does leave some issues. So the first part went in okay. It wasn't a straight fit. There was a bit of a struggle to get it in parts, but I did get it in okay. So once the bow decking was in, it was time for the midships part. This is where I started having difficulty. The hull is slightly splayed out a bit, and it was difficult to bring it back into together. Also, there's gapping issues between the decks as well, uh, which leads on to the next deck. The nature of this, I had to put it under heavy clamp too, to get it to pull together. As you can see there, I'm trying to hold it into place. This took some time, and I had to hold it for about 30 minutes. Then it was onto the stern deck. First of all, the main capstan's gone in. That just pushes through the little recess hole there, and an end cap goes on at the bottom. So just a little bit of cement inside the cap, then placed on the stem there. This allows movement if you want it to move. Next, you have to pull through the rope that you pull through on the lower deck, and I use my threader to do that as well. These ropes are for the ship's wheel, for the steer mechanism. Depending whether you want it to move or not, whether you have to do this. And then it was time to fit it. So I had the same issues with this one as I did with the midship. So the stem one, it does fit in easy enough, but again there was gapping issues with the capstan. It was slightly off centre. I don't know why that is. The other parts are straight, but this one is creating a gap. As you can see there, that little just where the capstan is, where my fingers are now, there's a gap there. I did manage to minimise it a bit, but that's going to have to be sorted out. So again, I had to put this on heavy clamps to close up the hull. It's worth pointing out though that you can get deck clamps to do this, so you don't have to use these big F clamps that I'm using. I don't have any, so that's why I'm using my F clamps. I'm using Revell 3-1 brown silk to paint the ship's wheel, and then Mr. Hobby 37 with brown for the actual housing for the wheel. Well, I'm going to carry on painting this, then start prepping for the next part of the build. But this brings this part 3 to a close. So it was quite a tricky part getting the decking secured and that, but I think I've done it okay. So in part 4 I'll carry on with some of the deck work. If you got a chance, why don't you watch other videos in the channel, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. But in the meantime, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.